In this Marketing for Architects video, we're going to look at how to differentiate your business from your competitors. After you go through this video, you'll know how to stand out from the crowd and get a potential client's attention before your competition does. And we do this with what's called positioning. But what is it and what is it not? Basically, positioning is the strategy we use to differentiate your business from your competitors. However, positioning is a game that you play in the mind. It's not a game you play in reality. Positioning in a nutshell is how you differentiate yourself in the mind of your prospect in comparison to your competition. However, you don't position your architectural services by comparing it to your competitors. You position your services by creating a new mental category inside the mind of your prospective clients that you can be first in. And if we do it well, which is what we're going to discuss here, then you will be the only option and therefore beyond being compared to anyone else. I know this might sound a bit confusing, but that's why positioning is such a misunderstood concept. Let me explain. Human minds use categories as shortcut decision makers. Our brains compartmentalize stored information into categories. The reason for this is because we live in an over-communicated society. For example, did you know that a one weekday edition of the New York Times contains more information than someone will come across in their entire lifetime in the 17th century? The typical person gets bombarded with 10,000 messages a day, be it online, on public transport, TV, radio, etc. As volume increases, it doesn't go into our brains. We would go insane if it did. So to protect our minds, we block most of it out. And we oversimplify what we do let into our minds because of the large volume of information coming at us every day. And we do this by putting information into various categories. Our minds can only hold 6 or 7 items in a category. For example, you have a stored category in your brain for fruit. You have one for vegetables. Try naming more than 7 types of fruit without thinking about it. It gets tough, doesn't it? That's because of the way your brain stores information. In addition, the world is complex, and prospects have plenty of choice of different architects. However, most of these options are not perceived to be significantly different from each other. Most architects try and get everyone and anyone as clients. They pretty much all say the same thing on their websites and have the same portfolios. This means the only thing they can compete on is price, and that's a game of how low can you go. We don't want to be anywhere near that. When 2 options are roughly the same, we consider them to be the roughly the same option, and we throw one away to conserve mental space. It's no use competing. If you do, you've already lost. Competing is a rough game in marketing, and it's one that's usually lost when competing with an established competitor. The reason is that the competitor has already gotten into the mind of your prospect. They got there first before you came around, and they will get selected because they were there first. We can't beat them by competing with them head on. So with all this in mind, how do we play this game? Well, we create a new category. It's much better to create a new category that you can be first in and let others compete. Look at it this way. Who was the first man on the moon? Who was the second? Who ran the first 4-minute mile? Who ran the second? You get the idea. Unfortunately, we are in a savagely competitive industry, so you won't be able to be first if you just promote yourself as a stereotypical architect. We need to be cleverer than that, as we have a positioning problem, because we won't be first in the category of architect. So we simply create a new category that we can be first in and control. A great example of this is Nokia and mobile phones. Apple knew they couldn't compete with Nokia in the category of mobile phone, as Nokia were first in their category. Instead, they came up with the smartphone, and the rest is history. They created their own category and were first, and now they are worth billions and Nokia are nearly bankrupt. So how do you create a mental category? Well, you start with an aspect of your client's need, problem, result that they want that's critically important to them. Think of things like uniqueness of project, type of project, speed, convenience, specific results, functionality, a guarantee, whatever is the key element to your client. Base your new mental category on a key need that is currently unmet and that your service meets. Remember, design is an abstract concept. If you asked 100 people what design means, you would get back 100 different answers. This isn't great when we need people to be crystal clear what our practice means to them. So you must touch base with reality and what's already in the prospect's mind. Now, we have spoken at length about offering specific solutions to specific problems. So for example, someone who wants to build a house extension requires a different result than someone who wants to refurbish a shop, for example. They have different emotional needs too, different pain points and desires. So specificity of project is essential if you're going to position yourself correctly in the marketplace. But the solution must be stated in specific, tangible, real-world concrete terms. So what in reality does your solution look like for your prospective clients? This is how people think. Also remember that we make decisions based on emotion, but we think in terms of things in the real world that trigger these emotions. These are called emotional triggers or hot buttons. Our marketing needs to be full of emotional triggers. I'm not talking about the emotions themselves, as that's a bit weird. Think of a funny movie you saw recently. One of my favourite films of all time is Trading Places with Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy. Now imagine Eddie Murphy looks at the screen and says, "Laugh." Of course, that would be weird. Instead, they act out these ridiculous and funny scenarios that we then find funny. In other words, they do things in reality that trigger our laughter. This is where we want to be with our marketing. We think in terms of things we can see, touch, smell and hear. You must talk about the results you get for people in these terms. Abstract concepts like design mean nothing. So think about your ideal client for a specific type of project. Drill down into a need to find the high emotion value, the 20% that is going unmet. Discover the words, phrases and specific emotional hot buttons that clients use to describe it. Research to find out the niche within the niche that you can own in the mind. Then translate that into the real world. What things out here in reality mean that those emotional needs are met? For example, a mother might be frightened that her kids will get burned in her cramped kitchen when they are running around her feet while she's cooking dinner. Here, the big emotion is fear, and the emotional hot button is the fantasy she has of her kids getting burned. So a nice big open plan kitchen where the natural pathways of the space do not intersect with the cooking space are the physical manifestation of solving her fear. Maybe the father feels ashamed that he can't invite his overbearing mother-in-law around for dinner because the dining area is too small. The emotion here is shame, and probably quite a bit of feeling insignificant. And the emotional hot button is a fantasy he has of his mother-in-law looking at him with scorn because he can't provide a proper home for her daughter and grandkids. The real-world solution to this is having a nice big and beautifully decorated dining area where he has his family over for dinner and they marvel at how great the place looks and his mother is even a little jealous. Does this make sense? Emotional hot buttons are usually fantasies or movies in our head that bring out the emotions themselves. They rarely exist in reality, but they are rooted in reality. In other words, they are a movie of something that could happen in reality. Let's break it down a bit more and look at positioning step by step. So think of how an ideal client feels about their situation, and then think what real-world fantasy they tell themselves would resolve it. This is positioning on a ninja scale. This can be difficult to get your head around, but just follow these steps. Step 1, pick a specific type of project. Step 2, put yourself in the shoes of a client for that type of project. Step 3, what is the dominant emotion they are feeling about their current situation? Step 4, what is the movie they play in their heads that triggers this emotion? In other words, what is the emotional hot button about their current situation? Step 5, what do they see as the solution to this situation? And step 6, position yourself as to deliver this solution. Note that to position yourself correctly is to align yourself with what they think is the solution, not what you think it is. Once we meet them where they are, we can then get them to come around to our solution pretty easily. But if we go in there off the bat with what we see as the solution, then it won't work. Changing people's minds is near impossible. They'll just double down on what they think the solution is. Meet them where they are at first with your marketing, and then you can influence them later once they feel you understand them. You see, categories diverge just like species diverge. Every business category eventually becomes 2 categories or more. Computers became laptops and desktops. Cars became compact cars, mid-sized cars and luxury cars. Anticipate this process and split the category yourself to create a category that you can own. Big companies lose because instead of creating a new niche and a new business and a new name, they try to take the old stuff they used to do and relabel it. Think IBM, Microsoft, Google and Facebook. IBM was the first computer, but they didn't create the software. Microsoft created the software, but they didn't create the search engine. Google created the search engine, but they didn't create social media. Each is a splinter of the previous one. Each is a new category. Next, we now need to name your new category. To get into the mind first, name your new category so that clients will see you as the inventor of it. Win by creating and promoting the category itself, not just your particular business or service. Ask who was first. For example, who was the first search engine? Who was the first energy drink? Who was the first portable MP3 player? Most people will say Google and Red Bull and iPod, but they weren't the first on the market. But they were first in the mind. It's better to be first than it is to be better. Here are some more examples of categories. With health foods, it's Whole Foods Market. Online auctions, it's eBay. Social networking, it's Facebook. Online video, it's YouTube. These are so well known that they are the category, like Starbucks and Jell-O. My category is making your home bigger. There's only 4 ways to do that, and that's extensions, lofts, remodeling, or basements. And I split each into a separate marketing channel, but the category is making your home bigger. And that's what I focus on in my marketing. There's a lot of things distilled into those few words. What can you come up with? The exercise in this video is all about creating a category that you can own inside the mind. The smartest marketers avoid competing directly with bigger, better financed competitors who are established in the market. Instead, they create a mental category that they can own. Use this exercise to create a category that you can own in the mind of your prospective client. So ask yourself, what is the biggest unmet need that your prospective client has, and that you could create a unique mental category around? What could you name this new category so you're considered the creator and inventor of it? Where could you take an existing category and divide it into 2 or more subcategories based on specific needs and then own one of them? This concludes the foundational part of this Marketing for Architects series. You now know more than 99% of your competition, but it's only a short walk now to get to the real good stuff where we put all this into practice. And I've created a special training where we do just that, and it's called the Affluent Architect Lifestyle Blueprint. It's about using what you've learned in this series of videos to get high-end single-family residential projects with your website and on autopilot. You'll be able to create a lifestyle business as an architect, funded by a few high-paying, affluent clients at any one time. You'll be able to leave the rat race behind forever, work the hours you want, make the money you want, and be your own boss. You'll be able to do stuff like spending time with your kids while still have great income coming in through a few high-paying clients, and be in a position to actually build relationships with your clients and be appreciated and acknowledged for being an architect for a change. To access this special workshop, go to this web address or click on the link below. I'm Declan Connolly, founder of Affluent Architect, and I'll see you in this special workshop.